Hello. I'm really glad you're here tonight. This hour is different from the rest of the day. It doesn't ask you to decide anything. It doesn't ask you to perform or explain or keep up. It simply invites you to lie still and let your thoughts move at their own pace. As the years pass, nighttime becomes a kind of companion, a place where the mind is free to wander without interruption, where memories return not urgently but patiently, where understanding settles in quietly without needing words. Later in life, the mind doesn't race the way it once did. It reflects, it revisits, it connects dots that once seemed unrelated. And it does this most honestly when the lights are off and the world has gone silent. This space is for those thoughts, the ones that don't surface during the day, the ones that arrive only when you're alone with yourself, resting, remembering, and gently making sense of a long, lived-in life. So take a slow breath. Let your body soften into the bed and allow this night to meet you where you are. And now, before we begin, if this kind of honest, gentle reflection speaks to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And down in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are right now. There's something comforting about knowing we're all here together, scattered across time zones, but united in these late hours when the world finally grows still. So settle in, adjust your pillows, find a comfortable position, and know that for the next hour, you're not alone in whatever wisdom you're carrying, whatever understanding you've earned, whatever truths rise to the surface when the lights go out. Let's begin. It is somewhere between midnight and morning right now, that particular hour that has no real name, the hour that belongs to neither the night just past nor the day still assembling itself somewhere far beyond your window. You are awake in it, or almost awake, drifting in that soft and uncertain space where the boundary between sleeping and waking dissolves, and the mind is finally free to go wherever it chooses, without schedule, without obligation, without anyone watching. The room around you is dark, but not the darkness of somewhere unfamiliar. This is your darkness, the particular shade of night that belongs to this room, this home, this life, as it exists right now. You know this darkness, the way you know your own breathing. It is yours. It holds nothing threatening. It is simply the world, with its daytime business set aside, showing you what it looks like underneath all that activity and noise. And underneath all of it, it looks like this: quiet, still, patient. And in that patience, something moves, not in the room, in you, in the oldest, deepest, quietest part of you, the part that only opens in these hours, the part that holds the long accumulation of living, the faces, the voices, the rooms, the roads, the seasons, the people, all of it stored somewhere below language, below thought, waiting for exactly this kind of darkness to make it accessible again. This is one of the things no one tells you about growing older. The memories don't fade, not the real ones, not the ones that matter. They settle, they deepen, they grow more concentrated over time, the way broth reduces on a stove, becoming richer and more essential with each hour that passes. Your memories are not disappearing. They are becoming more themselves. more purely what they always were, and they are most available before dawn in exactly this kind of silence, when the noise of living temporarily clears and what remains is only what has lasted. The shadows of memory move differently at this hour. During the day, when a memory surfaces, you register it briefly and move on. There is always somewhere to be, always something requiring your attention. The memory flickers and you notice it, and then you continue. But before dawn, before the world reclaims you, the memories don't flicker. They settle. They stay. They invite you to look at them fully, to walk around them, to see them from every side, to feel whatever they carry all the way down to the bottom of it. This is a gift. It is a quiet, unremarkable, profoundly important gift that comes with the years. Not instead of what the years take, alongside it. The gift of time and stillness and the willingness of memory to make itself fully available in the hours when you are most able to receive it. So let your body soften a little more. Let the mattress hold you completely. Let the pillow take the full weight of your head. You are not being asked to do anything right now. You are not being asked to remember anything in particular, or feel anything in particular, or arrive at any conclusion. You are simply invited to be present in this room, in this dark, in this hour, while the shadows move through and bring with them everything worth carrying, everything you have gathered across all these years, everything that is and has always been yours. You think of the earliest mornings you can remember, not this morning, not any recent morning, the first mornings, the ones that exist at the very beginning of the reel, slightly overexposed, slightly soft at the edges, but burning bright in the center where it counts, where everything that mattered was concentrated. You are very small in these memories. The scale of everything is different. A doorway is enormous. A kitchen table is enormous. An adult standing at a stove is a figure of immense and comfortable authority. The world is large and warm, and you move through it with complete confidence in its safety, because someone is providing that safety, and you have not yet been asked to provide it yourself. You remember mornings that began with sound, the particular sounds of your household before you fully opened your eyes. A pot on the stove, water running, the low, warm frequency of a radio in another room. Not the words, just the texture of it, just the companionable hum of another voice somewhere in the house. Footsteps on a floor, a door opening and closing, the sounds of someone who loved you beginning their day, the sounds of continuity, the sounds of someone being reliably, faithfully there. These sounds were your first understanding of safety, not as a concept, as a physical sensation in your chest. You would hear those sounds before you were fully awake, and your body would relax because the sound said everything without saying a single word. They said, "You are not alone, someone is there, the world is proceeding normally, you are cared for, you can sleep a little longer or you can wake slowly. There is no hurry, no emergency, no reason in the world to be afraid." You carry those sounds. They are in you right now, if you listen for them beneath the silence of this room, beneath the stillness of this pre-dawn hour, the faint, warm, ancient echo of morning sounds that meant everything was all right, that the night had passed, that the person you depended on was still there, still moving, still making the ordinary, faithful sounds of a day beginning. Someone made those sounds for you. Someone got up early and moved through that house and created the small, ordinary sounds of a morning so that when you woke, you would know you were held. They may not have thought of it that way. They were simply making breakfast, simply filling the kettle, simply being the first one up because someone had to be. But to you, to the child listening in a warm bed, they were building the world. They were confirming that the world continued, that it was good enough to wake up in. You remember their face as it looked in those mornings, the unhurried face, the face before the day had asked anything of them yet, the face when they were just themselves, in their own home, in their own quiet morning, before the mask of competence and composure that the wider world required was fully in place. This is one of the faces you carry most carefully, most tenderly. The unguarded morning face of someone who loved you. The face you were privileged enough to see because you were close enough, trusted enough, beloved enough to be shown it. They are gone, most likely, or so changed by time that the person who made those morning sounds in that particular house is, in essential ways, different from who they became. Time does this to everyone. Time changes the people we love, until we are sometimes quietly grieving them while they are still present. But here, in this room, in this hour before dawn, they are at the stove again. They are lifting the kettle. They are turning with that unhurried morning face. They are present in the way only memory makes possible, not filtered through time or change or distance, exactly as they were, exactly as you loved them. The morning preserved inside you like a photograph that somehow kept its color. You loved them. You love them still. The love doesn't stop when the person becomes unavailable to receive it. It simply changes shape. It becomes quieter, more internal, more like a steady warmth in the center of your chest than the active, demonstrated thing it was when they were there. But it is still love. It is still completely real. And right now, before dawn, in this room, it is available in its full and undiminished intensity. You are allowed to feel it entirely. You are allowed in this hour to love them without restraint. There were afternoons, not just mornings. The afternoons of your childhood had a quality that no other time of day has ever fully replicated since. A particular quality of light, a particular slowness, the sense of time being enormously abundant, stretching out ahead of you in all directions without visible limit, no end in sight, no shortage. Time the way water is plentiful near a river, just there, just available, just inexhaustibly and trustingly present. You remember what you did in those afternoons, the specific things, playing in a specific way, in a specific place, with specific companions, or entirely alone in the particular world of your own imagination. The games you invented, the worlds you constructed, from whatever materials were available, sticks and dirt and the gap between two fence posts, the space beneath a table, the branch of a particular tree. These were not poor substitutes for something better. These were complete. These were entire universes in themselves. You remember the quality of absorption you could achieve in those afternoons, total absorption. The kind where an hour would pass and feel like 5 minutes, and the person calling you in for dinner seemed to be calling from the other side of an ocean. The kind where your body disappeared and you were only mind and imagination and the world you had constructed around yourself. The kind that required nothing outside itself to feel whole and sufficient and exactly right. Children do not know they are experiencing something irreplaceable when they experience that kind of absorption. They don't know that the capacity for that kind of unself-conscious, total presence is one of the things that the slow accumulation of self-consciousness gradually erodes. That growing up means developing an interior audience, a critic, a part of you that watches and evaluates even while you're in the middle of living, pulling you partially out of your own experience to observe it from the outside. You didn't know. You were simply in the afternoon, completely, the way only a child can be in an afternoon. But you remember it. And in remembering it, tonight, before dawn, in this still and quiet room, you partially recover it. The afternoon comes to you, and for a moment, just a moment, the weight of all the years lifts. The world is larger and slower and full of time. The river is wide and the water is plentiful. You are young and the afternoon is endless, and there is nowhere in the world you are required to be except exactly here in this grass or this yard or this room, doing exactly this thing, completely and perfectly present. You close your eyes in the dark, and the afternoon is there. The friends of your earliest life come to you before dawn the way few things do. They come without the complications that time eventually added, without the drifting apart that different directions and different decades require. They come as they were, young and entirely present, and certain that whatever was happening between you was the most important thing in the world. Because it was. It absolutely was. There was a friendship that felt, at the time, as if it would simply always exist. Not because you consciously believed this, but because the concept of its ending was simply not available to you. You were children, or you were young, and the future was a blank, and the friendship was what was real and solid and sufficient. The long afternoons in each other's company, the specific, private language you developed that only the two of you fully understood. The particular, impossible to explain sense of being known, of having found someone who was, in some way you couldn't articulate, made from similar material as yourself. You remember the sound of that person's laugh. Not a general laugh, their specific laugh. The one that came from deep enough that it couldn't be performed. The one that happened when something was genuinely, unexpectedly funny. You can hear it now, in this room, rising from somewhere in the shadows around you, filling the quiet with a warmth that belongs to no other time of your life but that time. They may still be in your life, they may not be. Lives diverge. This is one of the quiet heartbreaks that no one prepares you for when you are young and forming the friendships that feel like permanent geography. They are not always permanent. People move. People become different versions of themselves that find their way to different orbits. And this is not failure. It is not anyone's fault. It is simply the nature of the long road. Not everything that begins together continues together, but everything that mattered is still real, still present, still part of the record, even if you lost touch, even if the last time you spoke was so long ago that the details have blurred at the edges. The friendship was real. The being known was real. The particular warmth of existing in someone's life as the person they most wanted to spend an afternoon with, that was real. And it lives in this room tonight, in the shadow that carries their laugh and their voice saying your name in the abbreviated, informal, intimate way that only people who truly know you ever use. You smile in the dark. No one is watching. This is entirely yours. Your body in those years. You remember it differently than you experienced it at the time. At the time, you were inside it, and from the inside, it was simply the medium you moved through the world in. You didn't think about it separately from yourself. You just were it. You ran and climbed and ate and slept and healed and grew without noticing any of it happening, because it was simply happening, the way weather simply happens, without requiring your attention or gratitude or awareness. But now, you can see it from the outside too. From the long, clear vantage point of all these years, you can see the young body moving through those early spaces with complete and unconsidered confidence. The body that didn't ache in the morning, the body that healed from a scrape or a bruise in 2 days and then forgot about it completely. The body that bounced back from everything because it had not yet accumulated the weight of everything, clean, full, resilient in a way that felt unremarkable because you had never known anything else. You were in that body. You lived in it without knowing it was something to cherish. Of course you didn't know. No one cherishes what they have never lost. No one appreciates the effortless morning until the morning stops being effortless. This is not a failure of character or imagination. This is simply how experience works. You have to leave something to understand fully what you had. But here, before dawn, in this particular quiet, you can feel a kind of retrospective gratitude for that body, for its loyalty and its capacity and its willingness to carry you through everything that was still ahead of it, without yet knowing what was ahead. It didn't know what was coming. Neither did you. But it showed up for every single day. It has kept showing up all the way to this bed, this room, this night. Still here, still breathing, still doing the quiet, faithful, unremarked work of keeping you present in the world. Rest your hand on your chest for a moment, just gently. Feel the rhythm there, your heartbeat. That beat has been keeping uninterrupted time for your entire life. Through every single thing that has ever happened to you, the beat continued. Through the joys and the losses and the ordinary days and the extraordinary ones. Through sleep and waking, through fear and peace, through grief that felt unsurvivable and hope that turned out to be justified. Through every season of every year, that beat continued. It is continuing right now, steady, reliable, faithful beyond any measure you could name. There was a particular summer, you know which one, or perhaps more than one, rises when you reach for this. Every life that has been fully lived contains at least one summer that stands above the others in memory, not necessarily because dramatic things happened in it, but because something about the particular combination of circumstances, the light, the company, the specific convergence of who you were and where you were and who was there beside you, created a season that felt more alive than the ones around it, more saturated, more essentially itself. You can feel that summer now, the temperature of it, the color of its evenings when the light went gold and everything it touched turned briefly precious, the feeling of being exactly in the right place at exactly the right time, with exactly the right people. The feeling, which is so rare and so worth acknowledging when it arrives, that this was living, that this was what life was capable of feeling like at its most generous and most present. You didn't know, while you were inside that summer, that you would still be able to feel it from this far away. You didn't mark it consciously as something to preserve. You were too busy living it to think about saving it. That is as it should be. That is the only correct way to live a summer, completely, without one eye on memory and one eye on the present, just in it, entirely, the way the body is entirely in water when you swim, but your memory saved it without being asked, filed it away in some place where the passing decades couldn't reach it. And tonight, in the darkness before dawn, in this room that holds everything you have ever been, that summer is as available to you as it was the day it happened. More available, perhaps, more visible, more precious for exactly the distance between then and now. You were young, and the summer was endless, and the future was a country you were walking toward without fear. You had every reason to be walking without fear. Everything that has happened since has been real, and some of it has been hard, and some of it has been harder than you thought you could bear. But you bore it, and the summer is still there, untouched by any of it, still golden, still warm, still completely yours. There was a house once, maybe the house you grew up in, maybe the first house you ever made yourself as an adult, learning for the first time what it meant to create something that was home. Maybe several houses across several chapters of your life, each one adding another layer to your understanding of what shelter means, what belonging feels like, what it is to have a place that knows you, that holds the particular texture of your daily life in its walls and its floors, and the specific way the afternoon light moves through certain windows at certain times of year. Houses remember the people who live in them. Or perhaps it is the other way around. People carry their houses with them. You can close your eyes right now in this room and walk through a house from your past with complete confidence. The floor plan is in you. You know which boards creaked under your feet. You know where the light came through in the morning and where the shadows gathered in the evening. You know the particular temperature of the hallway in winter, the smell of the kitchen in summer, the sound the windows made when the wind came from a particular direction. All of it stored, all of it preserved, held with a fidelity that no photograph could match. The house lives in you more completely than it ever existed in the physical world, because what exists in memory cannot be renovated, cannot be torn down, cannot be sold to strangers who will change it until nothing of what it was survives. Your house in memory is still standing, still exactly as it was when you were most yourself within its walls. You can go there tonight, You can walk through every room at whatever pace you choose. You can stand at the kitchen window and look out at the yard in a season that has passed 1,000 times since then. You can feel the warmth the house generated when it was full of people who loved each other at their best. The warmth that a home doesn't generate from the heating system, but from the people inside it, from their voices and their meals and their arguments resolved and their evenings spent together and their ordinary, unremarkable days that were, you now understand, not unremarkable at all. You built some of that warmth yourself. You maintained it. You offered it to the people around you who needed it. This is among the most essential things a person can do with a life. Building warmth, creating safety, making a place in the world where someone else can rest and feel held and believe, however briefly, that things will be all right. You did this, in whatever way you were capable of doing it at each stage of your journey, in each home you inhabited, with each person you loved. You made warmth. You offered shelter in the truest sense. Not just the physical kind, the kind that lives in how you looked at someone, how you listened, how you stayed when staying was what was needed. This is not a small thing. This is, in the accounting that matters, everything. The seasons of a long life accumulate differently than the seasons of a short one. When you have lived through 60 or 70 or more springs, you know spring in a way that cannot be fully communicated to someone who has only known 20. The pattern has revealed itself, not as an idea about spring, but as something lived, confirmed by repetition across a long and attentive life. You feel the season change in your body before the calendar confirms it. The particular smell of the air in the last week of winter, when something is shifting and the earth is considering returning. The exact light of early spring mornings, the specific warmth of the first afternoon in a new year, when it becomes genuinely, fully warm and the whole world seems to exhale. You know these things, not as information, as intimacy. There is a kind of comfort in this that only comes with age, a deep, structural, unhurried comfort. The world keeps its rhythms. The seasons return without being asked to. The light comes back. Spring comes after every winter without exception, without fail, without needing anything from you in order to arrive. You have seen this enough times now to trust it the way you trust gravity, not as a proposition, but as a lived certainty, confirmed by the full length of your life. You are part of that cycle. You are one of the creatures that has moved through it year after year, decade after decade. That has felt the cold and waited for warmth, and felt the warmth arrive and lived within it, and watched it soften into autumn, and felt the cold returning, and waited again with patience earned through repetition. This is not endurance in any grim or heroic sense. This is participation. This is being alive in time, in the fullest possible way. This is the privilege of having lived long enough to know the pattern so completely that it has become part of your own body's understanding. All the seasons you have ever lived through are present in you tonight. Every winter and every spring, every long summer afternoon and every crisp morning in October, when the air carried that particular clarity that autumn brings. Every first snow that you watched from a window, every first crocus that appeared in a garden you were tending. 60 or more years of seasons, all of them present in this body, all of them part of who you are, all of them contributing to the particular depth and richness that only time gives to experience. Sleep is not what it was. You know this. You have lived with this long enough that you no longer need to be told or reminded or consoled about it. The nights of your younger years were different. You fell into sleep the way you fell into water, from a great height, immediately, completely, with total surrender and no resistance whatsoever. You would close your eyes and the world would simply cease until morning, and you would wake feeling genuinely restored, ready, sometimes even eager for what the day would bring. Sleep now is more negotiated, more layered. It comes and goes in the night according to its own agenda, which doesn't always align with yours. You wake at this hour, this particular unnamed hour before dawn, and sleep doesn't automatically return. You lie here in the dark, aware of the room, aware of your body, aware of the specific quality of the quiet, and you wait. Sometimes sleep comes back quickly. Sometimes it takes its own time. And sometimes, like tonight, it offers you something different instead. Not unconsciousness, something more interesting than unconsciousness. This space, this country, this pre-dawn territory of memory and reflection, and the long, unhurried, deeply personal work of making meaning from all the years. You used to resist this wakefulness. You remember that, lying here trying to force sleep back, tensing against the wakefulness as if it were an opponent to be defeated, counting things or controlling your breathing with grim determination, making the night longer and harder by treating it as an obstacle. At some point, without making a formal decision to, you stopped resisting. You accepted the invitation the darkness extended. You began arriving in these pre-dawn hours with something closer to curiosity than frustration. A willingness to ask, what will come tonight? What will be visible in this particular darkness that wasn't visible yesterday? What does this hour have to offer if I stop fighting it and start receiving it? This shift was not small. This shift was perhaps one of the quieter pieces of wisdom that the long years slowly built in you without your noticing it being built. Not everything that happens to you at night is interruption. Some of it is offering. Some of it is the night holding out something it can only give in this particular hour, in this particular stillness, to someone who has lived long enough to be ready to receive it. You are ready. You have been ready for some time. And so the night gives you back the faces, the voices, the summers, the kitchens, the particular expressions of people who loved you before you understood you were being loved, the friendships, the afternoons, the houses, the seasons, the sounds of specific mornings in specific rooms in a specific life that was and remains entirely and irreplaceably yours. All of it available in this room, in this hour, because you stopped fighting the darkness and started listening to what it was carrying. There is something the long years give you that cannot be named easily. It is not wisdom in the way people use that word, as if wisdom were a collection of conclusions you could recite on demand. It is more like a quality of attention, a way of being present to the texture of things that younger eyes miss, because younger eyes are always looking forward, always scanning the horizon for what is coming, never fully resting on what is already here. You rest on what is already here. You have learned how to do this. After everything you have been through, after everyone you have loved and everyone you have lost and every version of yourself you have already lived and outgrown, you have learned the particular art of being present to the thing directly in front of you, or in this case, the thing directly inside you. The memory, the face, the summer, the morning, the sound of a voice you will never hear again with your outer ears, but that lives in you so completely it needs no outer ear to be fully, entirely audible. You hear it right now, in this room, in this dark, before dawn, and you are grateful, not the performed gratitude of someone trying to feel the right thing, the real kind, the quiet, specific, unhurried gratitude of someone who understands, in the deepest possible way, what it means to have had something worth remembering. Your life has been worth remembering. Every moment you have lived has contributed to the person lying here in this room right now. Even the moments you would not have chosen, even the ones that were hard beyond what you thought you could survive, even the ones you would change if you could, though you know that changing them would change everything that came after, and you are not certain you would want that. Even those moments are part of the record, part of the shape of the thing, and the shape is yours. It belongs to no one else. It was made by no one else. It is the shape of a life fully and specifically and irreplaceably lived. Rest now, for just a moment. Let everything that has moved through you in this first part of the night settle gently, like snow settling, not disappearing, just coming softly to rest. The memories are not going anywhere. The faces are not leaving. The summers and the mornings and the houses and the seasons and the friendships are all still here, held safely in the place where all real things are held. You have been on a long journey tonight. You have been on a long journey your entire life. And this room, this dark, this hour before the dawn, is a resting place, a sanctuary, a place where nothing is required of you except the simple and complete act of being here, breathing, alive in the full weight and meaning of everything you have lived and loved and carried and given and received. The dark has not changed. The room is exactly as it was when you first settled into it tonight. The same quiet, the same gentle weight of the air, the same particular shade of darkness that belongs to this room and no other room in the world. But you have changed slightly, haven't you? Something in you has shifted in the first half of this night. Something has been visited and acknowledged and set gently down. And now there is a little more room, a little more space inside you, a little more willingness to go deeper, to follow the shadows where they lead, to receive whatever this second half of the night is holding out. So breathe in slowly, all the way to the bottom of it, and let it go. Let it all go. The night is not finished with you yet, and you are not finished with it. There is more to see in these shadows, more to feel, more to let surface and settle and be finally, fully seen. The dawn is still hours away. The world outside is still sleeping or still beginning to stir, depending on where you are. But here, in this room, in this bed, in this body that has carried you across every decade of your life, there is still time. There is still this hour. There is still the particular and irreplaceable gift of the shadows before dawn. There were people who shaped you so quietly that you didn't notice it happening. Not the ones who shaped you loudly. Those you knew about. Those you could name and trace and follow the thread of their influence directly back through your life to the specific moments where they altered your direction. No, the quiet ones. The ones who offered something so gently, so without ceremony, that you absorbed it without cataloging it, whose contribution to who you became was woven into you so completely that it now simply feels like part of you, like something you were always carrying, when in fact it was something another person placed in your hands so carefully you didn't feel the exchange. You think of one of them now, someone who surfaces in this pre-dawn dark with the particular quality of a presence that never needed to announce itself in life and doesn't need to announce itself in memory either. Just here, just warmly, undeniably here. The way some people are simply present in the room and the room is different for their presence, even if they are saying nothing, even if they are simply existing alongside you in the ordinary way. Maybe it was a grandparent, the one who sat in a specific chair, who had a specific smell that was entirely theirs. Not a perfume, or not only a perfume, but the deeper smell of a person, of their particular skin and their particular soap and the particular food they cooked and the particular life they had lived in the body they inhabited. That smell meant something absolute to you. It meant arrival. It meant safety in its most ancient, most pre-verbal form. Before you had the words for what love was, you had that smell, and the two things were completely identical to you. You remember sitting beside them, or near them. The specific geography of being in their company, the particular angle of the afternoon light when you were in their house, in their room, in the particular atmosphere they generated around themselves without effort or intention. You remember watching their hands. The hands of an elder are one of the most specific and carrying things in the world. They tell the whole story without words. The work done, the years logged, the weight lifted and set down and lifted again, the tenderness given, the grief survived, all of it written in the hands. You held those hands, maybe only at the end, when holding hands was what the moment required. Maybe all your life, reaching for them automatically, the way you reach for something you know will be solid and reliable when your footing is uncertain. Those hands held you first, before you held them. They were the first hands that handled you in the world, or nearly the first, or among the first. They knew you when you were new. They knew you before you knew yourself. And the memory of them exists in your own hands right now. If you open them in the dark and feel the air against your palms, feel it, the air against your open hands, and know that somewhere in that sensation is the echo of those hands, the hands that held you before you had anything to offer in return except your existence, except the weight and the warmth of you, which was, it turns out, more than enough, which was, it turns out, everything. You made choices, a whole life of them. some large and deliberate, standing at a crossroads with full awareness that you were choosing, feeling the weight of the decision. Some so small in the moment you barely registered them as choices at all, and only later, from the long and clarifying distance of years, did you understand that those small, unremarked choices were among the most consequential ones you ever made. The people you chose to stay close to, the people you allowed to drift, the places you decided to make your home, the work you gave yourself to, the things you said when you could have stayed silent, the things you stayed silent about when you could have spoken. All of it chosen, all of it yours. The accumulation of choice that has produced this specific and unrepeatable life. You could have been somewhere entirely different tonight. A different version of you, shaped by different choices. Could have been in a different room, in a different home, in a different life altogether. The alternative selves are out there somewhere in the branching paths that weren't taken. The lives you didn't live because you lived this one instead. You occasionally wonder about them. The wondering is not regret exactly. It is more like curiosity. But here is what you know. Lying here in this actual room, this life was real. Every moment of it was real. Every person you loved was real. Every grief you survived was real. Every joy you experienced was real. And no alternate version of your life could have been more real than this. Could have been more yours than this. You chose this. Not every circumstance, not every difficulty, not every loss. Those came without being chosen, but you chose how to move through them. You chose over and over who to be in the face of what life handed you. And the person you chose to be is the person lying here right now, with all the complexity and the contradiction and the things you would still do differently and the things you got exactly right and the things you are still, even now, in the process of understanding. This person is enough. This choosing, imperfect, faithful, surviving, loving, wondering person. Enough. Completely and entirely, and without qualification. There was a grief. There always is, when you have lived long enough to love deeply enough. A grief that remade you. Not the small griefs, though those accumulate and matter. The large one, the one that arrived and looked for the version of you that existed before it and couldn't find them, because that version ended with the loss. The one that required you to become someone new in order to survive. Someone you hadn't planned on being. Someone you wouldn't have chosen to become, given the choice. But someone real. Someone capable of the things you didn't know you were capable of. Someone who knew afterward, in the deepest possible way, what really mattered and what didn't. You know which loss this is. You don't need it named. It is present in the room with you right now, in the particular, tender, aching way that it always is when you are still and quiet long enough for it to settle beside you. It does not demand anything from you. It does not require you to revisit it in detail or relive it or extract meaning from it on demand. It simply asks to be acknowledged, to be held gently and without flinching, in the full awareness that it was real and it happened and it changed you, and you have been carrying it ever since, with a faithfulness that honors what was lost. You have been faithful. You have carried this in the way it deserved to be carried. Not dramatically, not in a way that required anyone else to manage your grief for you, not by making it the center of every room you walked into. You carried it quietly, in the way that people who truly understand loss eventually learn to carry it, as part of you rather than in front of you. Integrated, absorbed, held in the same body that still gets up in the morning and makes breakfast and feeds the birds and responds to messages and does all the ordinary things that a life requires, even when a part of you will be in mourning until your own last breath. This is not brokenness. This is love that outlasted its object. This is what it looks like when the feeling was real, and the person was real, and the loss was real. This is what fidelity looks like when keeping faith means continuing to feel something even when there is no longer anyone to show it to. They are here tonight, in this room, in these shadows, not in any frightening or supernatural way, in the quiet, natural, entirely human way that the deeply loved are always present in the rooms of the people who love them, in the habits you formed because of them, in the things you notice because they taught you to notice them, in the person you became partly because they were in your life and helped shape the shape of you. They are here and you are here, and tonight, before the dawn, that is all that is needed. No resolution, no final answer, no relief from the missing, which never fully resolves and doesn't need to. Just the acknowledgement, just the two of you, in whatever way that is still possible, in this room, in this dark, in this hour that belongs to what is honest and what is real. The years that surprised you most were not the early ones. The early ones unfolded roughly as expected, shaped by the expectations given to you by everything that had shaped you before them. They were new, certainly, but the newness felt anticipated, felt like the next chapter in a book you had been given enough of to know its general shape. It was the middle years that surprised you, not because they were harder or easier than expected, though they were both at different moments, but because of how differently they felt from the inside versus how they looked from the outside. When you were young, looking forward at middle age, you imagined something settled, a person who had figured most of it out, a self that had solidified into its final form. But inside the middle years, from the inside looking out, you were still the same person you had always been, still uncertain in the same fundamental ways, still discovering things about yourself that surprised you, still making significant mistakes and having to reckon with them, still falling short of the person you intended to be, and still trying, always still trying. This surprised you more than anything, that trying doesn't stop, that the effort required to be a decent person and a faithful friend and a present parent doesn't reduce with age. You get more skilled in some ways and more patient in others, but you never arrive at the place where you can simply coast. The choosing continues, the becoming continues, all the way to the end. This is not a disappointing thing to discover, not anymore. It seems to you now like one of the more hopeful things you know. That becoming is never finished, that the possibility of deeper understanding, of finding new patience or new compassion or a new way of seeing something you thought you'd seen completely remains available. Tonight, you might understand something you didn't understand yesterday. The process is ongoing. As long as you are here, breathing, present, you are not done. Your parents were imperfect. You have known this for decades. But the particular way you hold their imperfection has changed over the years in ways that tell you something important about who you have become. When you were young, their imperfections were injuries. They were things done to you, whether deliberately or through their own limitations and their own unhealed wounds pass forward without full awareness of the damage. You felt those injuries clearly. You named them. You spent years in the long, necessary work of understanding them. But at some point, somewhere in the long middle of your life, your understanding shifted, not to excuse, not to erase, not to pretend the injuries weren't real, but to see your parents as people, as fully human people who were also shaped by imperfect parents, who also carried injuries forward from their own childhoods without fully understanding what they were carrying, who also tried, in the ways they were capable of, to do better than they had been done by, and sometimes succeeded and sometimes failed, and lived with the weight of both. You became a person with a longer view, a view long enough to see back past your own childhood into the childhoods of the people who raised you, and back through the long chain of imperfect love, doing its imperfect best across the generations. The love was always there. Imperfect love, struggling love, limited love. But always, underneath everything, love. And now, from this distance, lying here in the dark, you hold your parents with a tenderness that younger you could not have managed. Not the tenderness of pretending, the tenderness of seeing clearly, of seeing them as fellow travelers, people who also woke in the night with the weight of everything, who also longed for more than the world gave them, who also loved imperfectly and made the best of it. You forgive them, not for their sake alone, for yours, for the lightness that forgiveness gives to the one who offers it. The forgiveness is an opening, a release, and what fills the space it opens is something cleaner and warmer than the weight it replaces. They did their best, as you have done yours. The imperfect best is, in the end, all any of us has to offer, and it is, in the end, enough. The beauty of this world entered you through specific moments, not through general appreciation, through specific, unrepeatable, lightning strike moments when something about the world arrowed directly into you and lodged there permanently. A particular view from a particular hill at a particular time of day in a particular season. You know the one. The light coming from a specific angle, falling across a specific landscape, creating an arrangement of shadow and gold that you understood in the moment of seeing it was one of the most beautiful things you would ever witness. And you were right. And you have carried it since as a kind of proof. When the world has felt grey and difficult, you have had that view to return to. That particular configuration of earth and sky that said, without words, in the most direct possible language, this world is worth it. This life is worth it. Or a sound. Music that found you at exactly the right moment and moved through you without resistance. The way things can only move through you when grief or love or exhaustion or joy has opened you completely. Music that articulated something so specifically true about your experience that you felt seen, felt understood by something that wasn't even a person, but that carried human feeling so completely it might as well have been. The beauty lives in you, all of it. The views and the music and the faces of people you loved at their most beautiful, which was not always when they were conventionally beautiful, but when they were most fully themselves. These moments are among the most important things you own. They cost nothing to carry, take up no space, cannot be lost or stolen. They are simply there, inside you, available in the dark. Even in the hard years, the beauty arrived. Not on schedule, not when you thought you needed it most, but it arrived. A morning that was perfect despite everything. A conversation that left you feeling fully understood. A meal shared with someone you loved, ordinary in its components, extraordinary in its atmosphere. The world kept giving these, even when you were least expecting them. The world has been, in this specific way, endlessly and faithfully generous. There are things you know now that you could not have been told earlier. Knowledge that could only come through the specific lived experience of going all the way through something, not hearing about it, not watching someone else navigate it, going through it yourself, with your own body and your own heart and your own full and unavoidable experience of it. You know now what it means to love without needing the love returned in a particular form. How long this took to learn. How many years of not knowing preceded the knowing. How much easier the loving became once the needing reduced. How much more room there was for the actual person with all their actual complexity when you stopped requiring them to fill a particular shape you had decided in advance they needed to fill. You know now that most of the things you worried about either didn't happen or weren't as terrible as anticipated when they did. This is not a criticism of the worrying. The worrying was real and came from real vulnerability and cannot be dismissed. But from this distance, you can see the pattern clearly. The vast majority of the feared things either never arrived or arrived and were survived in ways that surprised you with your own resilience. You were more capable than the fear believed. You nearly always were. You know now that the ordinary days were not obstacles between the meaningful ones. This is perhaps the understanding that has settled most deeply in you over the most time. The ordinary Tuesday, the unremarkable Wednesday morning, the evening that contained nothing exceptional except dinner and a conversation and the quiet movements of a household where people who loved each other were simply alive together. These were not the backdrop. These were the thing itself, the texture of a life, the substance of what daily existence is made of. The unremarkable ordinary days were the life. And there were so many of them. And they were enough. They were more than enough. They were everything. You know this now. And knowing it changes how you inhabit the ordinary days that remain. How you arrive in each one with a different quality of attention, not trying to make them exceptional. They don't need to be exceptional. Just trying to be present in them, awake to them, available to whatever small and unremarkable and entirely sufficient thing the ordinary day is offering. The night is beginning to thin slightly. Not yet dawn, not yet the shift you can feel coming, the distant gathering of light at the edge of things that will eventually become the morning. But a slight change in the texture of the dark, a slight softening, the night moving into its final and most tender phase. Your body is heavy now, the good kind of heavy. The weight of a long journey accepted and walked and brought to its natural resting point. Not the heavy of exhaustion in a grim sense, the heavy of completion, of having gone somewhere and arrived somewhere and knowing that you did not move through this night unchanged. Something has moved through you. Something has been acknowledged that needed to be acknowledged. Some version of you that lived long ago and deserved to be visited has been visited. Some grief that needed to be touched gently in the dark has been touched. Some beauty that deserved to be remembered has been remembered. You are lying in a room that holds an entire life. Everything you have ever experienced is in this room in some form. In your body that has been with you through every single moment of every single year. In the memories that circulate through you in the quiet hours, in the love you carry for people living and people gone, in the understanding you have accumulated slowly and painfully and sometimes joyfully over a lifetime of paying attention. All of it here, all of it yours, all of it part of the specific and unrepeatable person that this particular life has made you. No one else has lived your life. No one else has walked exactly this road, loved exactly these people, lost exactly these things, survived exactly these difficulties, witnessed exactly these mornings and evenings and ordinary days. This life is a singularity. It will never be repeated. It exists once entirely, and its existence has changed the world in ways both visible and invisible, traceable and untraceable, known to you and entirely unknown, rippling outward in ways that no one, including you, can fully map. You have mattered in the specific way that only you could matter, in the ways that only you, with your particular self, your particular love, your particular presence in the specific rooms and lives and moments where you appeared could matter. The people you influenced in passing without knowing you were influencing them. The days you made easier for someone just by showing up. The words you said once, years ago, that you have long forgotten, that someone has carried ever since because those words were exactly what they needed at exactly that moment. The love you gave that shaped someone's understanding of what love could feel like, and that they passed forward to others, and that is still moving through the world even now, in ways you will never see or know. You have mattered. This is true. It requires no proof. It requires no final accounting, no list of accomplishments, no external validation. You lived, you loved, you were present, you tried, you cared. This is mattering. This is everything mattering means. Let your eyes grow heavier now. Let the thoughts begin to lose their sharp edges. Let the memories that have moved through this night shift from images into feeling, from specific recalled scenes into a general warmth. The accumulated warmth of all those remembered loves and summers and mornings and houses and faces and seasons gathered in this room, gathered in this body, gathered in this breathing, living, entirely sufficient you. The shadows are softening. They are not disappearing. They are simply becoming less distinct, more gentle, more like the edge of sleep than the clarity of waking. This is the invitation, not to forget, never to forget, but to rest from remembering for a few hours, to allow the unconscious to do its quiet, faithful work, to let the body complete what it needs to complete in the deep and unreachable territory of sleep. You have done your work tonight, the real work, the work of a person who has lived long enough to understand that the inner work is the most important work. You have sat with what deserved to be sat with. You have acknowledged what deserved to be acknowledged. You have felt what was waiting to be felt. You have moved through the shadows of memory with the patience and the courage and the tenderness of someone who has learned over many decades and many long nights how to do exactly this. Let the body rest now. The shoulders, feel them releasing. The jaw, let it go completely. The hands, open them in the dark, palms up, and then let them close softly, naturally, without effort or intention. Let the whole length of you release into the mattress, into the pillows, into the familiar and complete comfort of this bed that knows you, that has held you through so many nights, that is holding you now. The dawn is coming. In an hour or 2 or 3, depending on the season and where you are in the world, the light will begin. The birds will start tentatively at first, the way they always do, as if checking that the world is still there before committing fully to the announcement. The sky will graduate through its colors. The room will begin to fill with the soft gray of early morning. The day will begin to assemble itself outside your window with the same faithful, reliable efficiency it has used every morning of your life. But that is later. That is for another version of this night. The version that has a different name and different requirements. Right now, there is only this: the dark, the room, the body resting, the mind releasing, the long accumulation of a life lying still and warm and held by everything that this room and this hour and this quiet make possible. The people you have loved are here with you, every one of them, the living and the gone, the ones you will speak to tomorrow, and the ones you will never speak to again in this life. All of them present in the way that love makes people permanently present. All of them part of the room. All of them part of the warmth. All of them gathered around you in the gentle dark, like the most faithful company you have ever had, which is exactly what they are. The seasons of your life are here. Every spring and summer and autumn and winter that you have lived through, all of them contributing their particular light and smell and temperature and meaning to the single, continuous, unbroken experience of being you. All those seasons inside you, all that time lived, all that beauty witnessed, all that weather survived, all of it here, all of it present, all of it yours, for as long as you are here to carry it, which is not forever, but is right now. And right now is enough. The mornings of your life are here. Every morning you have ever woken to. The first ones and the middle ones and the hardest ones and the most beautiful ones. The mornings that began in the sound of someone you loved moving through a house. The mornings that began in grief. The mornings that began in joy. The ordinary mornings, the extraordinary ones. All of them part of the continuous story of a person who kept waking up, who kept returning to the world, who kept choosing day after day, year after year, decade after decade to be here. You are still here, in this room, in this night, in this body, breathing, alive, present, still carrying everything you have ever carried, still capable of love and memory and the quiet, deep, essential work of making meaning in the dark. This is not a small thing. This is, in the truest sense, everything. The breath moves through you, in and out. The oldest rhythm, the most faithful one, the one that was there before language and before thought and before understanding. Just breath, just the body doing what it has done every moment of every day and night of your entire life. Just this, just now, just the air moving in and out of a person who has lived a real and full and worthy life and who is resting now, in the hour before dawn, having done the work of memory and acknowledgement and love. Let sleep come if it will. Welcome it the way you would welcome an old friend arriving after a long journey. Quietly, without fuss, with a warmth that requires no words because everything between you is understood. Let it settle over you the way the night settles over the world. Gently, completely, without resistance. You have nothing left to do tonight. Nothing to decide. Nothing to solve. Nothing to fear. Nothing to regret. Only this breathing, this warmth, this room full of everything you have ever loved, this life, held gently in the dark, exactly as it is, exactly as it has always been, exactly as it was always enough to be. The shadows of memory will be here tomorrow night, and the night after, and every night that the quiet comes and the world grows still and the hours before dawn open their particular territory to you. The memories do not expire. The love does not diminish. The faces do not fade from the place where they truly live, which is inside you, where nothing that has ever mattered can be lost. They are keeping watch tonight. All the people and all the seasons and all the mornings, all the beauty you have been given, all the love you have been given, and all the love you have given back, keeping watch while you rest. Surrounding this room with everything that is real and lasting and entirely, permanently yours. Rest now. You are held. You are loved. You are home. The fires die down. The stories settle. And the world grows still. Let your thoughts drift away like embers on the wind. Good night. You've journeyed far through time tonight. Now it's time to journey into dreams. Close your eyes. Breathe. And let sleep find you.